This is NBC Palm Springs. Breaking news.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gino Lamont.
And I'm Sarah Sanchez.
We begin tonight with that breaking news story. A deadly deputy-involved shooting at the corner of Calle Tampico and Washington, directly in front of La Quinta City Hall. The Riverside County Sheriff's Department put out a tweet about 1:45 this afternoon saying there were no outstanding suspects, but the one suspect had been transported to the hospital. The deputy in this incident is okay. Our Nico Payne is live in La Quinta, where we've just got new information on this case, and he joins us with the latest. Nico, good evening.
That's right, Gino. We're right across City Hall here in La Quinta, and you can see behind me a large perimeter has been set up in this area, and it has been blocked off as they continue this investigation. What we know so far is that there was a deputy-involved shooting after reports of a man with a gun in a City Hall courtyard. The suspect was transported to a local hospital and later died due to his injuries. There is no immediate threat to this area. We did speak to Riverside County sheriffs and a business in the area who explained the commotion they saw after the shooting.
So today at about 1:25 p.m. Our deputies received information of a man with a gun in the courtyard of the La Quinta City Hall. The deputies responded to the area and saw that man with a gun, with a weapon, and then at that time the deputy-involved shooting occurred. The suspect was hit by the gunfire, and he was transported to a local hospital where he did succumb to his injuries.
We just saw a bunch of cop cars rushing over here. Some cops going that way, some cops going towards City Hall. A minute later, EMTs are coming. Maybe a couple minutes later, we see them pull out this guy, and then by that time, all the streets were blocked, so EMT was able to go.
Back out here live, taking another look at the scene. The district attorney is on scene and is taking the lead in this investigation. We did speak to sheriffs, and they tell us as soon as more information becomes available, they will release it. Reporting live in La Quinta, I'm Nico Payne, NBC Palm Springs.
All right, thank you, Nico. Police haven't found a man wanted for kidnapping his girlfriend at gunpoint. She got away and he disappeared. Police tell us that Manuel Valadez is considered armed and dangerous. The woman says Valadez forced her into a car at gunpoint. Then he drove her around the valley. Apparently, there was a struggle because the car somehow ended up crashed into the median near Palm Desert's Costco. The victim then took off running, and so did the suspect. Police say if you do see Valadez, do not approach him. Again, he is considered armed and dangerous, but call 911 immediately.
You may have seen black smoke drifting over the central and eastern parts of our valley this afternoon. That's smoke from a brush fire near Dillon and State Route 86. Broke out around 3:45. It was 3 acres initially. Heavy equipment has been called in to help firefighters put it out. At least one lane of the 86 was closed to help control traffic there. No word yet on how the fire started.
Taking a live look now, courtesy of our Agua Caliente Casino cam, and you can see once again as the sun sets, we got blue up high, but sort of a hazy browny orange down in the lower parts of the atmosphere. Mike Everett joins us now with more science. Mike.
Gino, we've been talking about that all week long. The different levels of the atmosphere down at the surface. Yeah, it's still not particularly great. We've got a lot of that smoke and particulate matter. We still have those 3 fires, the Snow Fire, the Bobcat Fire, and the El Dorado, that are immediately off towards our north and west. So as that wind switches around, which, by the way, it's already done this evening, we start to get that flow coming from where the fires are through the mouth of the pass and into the Coachella Valley. Bottom line, we've still got some air quality that's not particularly great here, but as soon as you look up in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, seeing some beautiful blue sky, seeing stars over the last couple of nights. In fact, I saw a gorgeous shooting star last night, so things moving in the right direction. Take a look at air quality again in the upper layers of the atmosphere where you see the Goes West satellite. We're seeing a lot going on there. Some marine layer cloud cover making a return to the coast. That's some good news. That's a sign of onshore flow, and that will be something that we'll take into the weekend. In fact, it'll help to moderate temperatures and make it a really nice weekend here in the Coachella Valley. There's the Salton Sea. There's us. And again, the upper layer is looking good. It's just down at the surface where we continue to have poor air quality. Now, the folks at the South Coast Air Quality Management District agree. They've kept us in this moderate range for most of the week here. As you go off towards the west here, you're seeing a bit of a mixed bag. You head out towards Riverside and Beaumont. They're in that unhealthy range, or unhealthy to sensitive groups range. The red, unhealthy, still exists closer to the base of the Bobcat fire there and the El Dorado, but I am encouraged that we're seeing a little bit more green. That is good air quality. That's a little bit further off towards the west there. So there is Hemet, there's Temecula, so it's closer to the coast that we're seeing that air starting to clear. It's looking really good there. It's looking really warm here. Once again, temperatures ran about 10, 11 degrees above average. We got that wind coming in from the north-northwest, which would normally be good news for us, except for the fact that it is pushing in more smoke. If there is one silver lining to this, it's taking that smoke from that fire down this eastern end of the valley and pushing that further off along the I-10 corridor and away from the Coachella Valley. Humidity sitting at 12%. Not great, but at least not single digits. We're going to be seeing lots of single digits as we go into next week. Put Futurecast into motion. I'm loving what I'm seeing up in British Columbia. Look at that blue up there. You're seeing some pretty significant snowfall in the way upper elevations over the next 24 hours. Seeing some rain making its way into Oregon and Washington, but it looks like for the most part the long wave trough that we were hoping would swing across Southern California has tucked its legs up. It'll keep onshore flow, but doesn't look like it's going to bring us any meaningful changes. Next 3 days brought to you by Comfort Air shows a pretty decent weekend. 105 on Friday becomes 104 on Saturday. That's cooler than it's been in a while. We'll take that into Sunday as well, but the reason I got the red thermometer on there is because Sunday afternoon those winds switch around. They're going to become offshore once again. It gets warm, it gets dry, and fire dangers go back up again next week. I've got the details and your full forecast coming up.
Well, now federal investigators have been brought in to look into the cause of the Bobcat fire. It's one of the largest wildfires in LA County history. It has burned more than 113,000 acres and may have been sparked by Southern California Edison's utility equipment. It wouldn't be the first time SCE has been blamed. Last November, it agreed to pay $360 million to settle lawsuits over wildfires sparked by its equipment.
Massive wildfire burning in Central California for more than 2 weeks now has entered the history books. Fire officials say the Creek Fire is now the largest single wildfire the state has ever seen, at more than 289,000 acres of Fresno and Madera counties having been burned. Hundreds of homes have been lost. Tonight, it's still just 32% contained, and the state still has 26 active wildfires statewide.
Anton Kubica is sentenced to 25 years to life for murdering a 78-year-old woman. A judge sentenced him today for the 1990 murder of Marie Darling. Darling was a widow who lived alone in Palm Springs. Kubica killed Darling, then transferred more than $170,000 of her money into a different bank account. The remains of Marie were found at a rest stop in Cactus City a few days after she disappeared. The case went cold. It was then reopened in 2014. Kubica was extradited back from Canada.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
All right, taking a look at today's numbers. Now, you may recall it was just 2 days ago we were in double-digit new cases, but it shot back up into the mid-200s yesterday, and today we're back in at 188 new cases countywide, 30 new cases in the Coachella Valley, 6 deaths countywide, 2 here in the desert.
There's been a resurgence of interest in addressing the struggling Salton Sea. First, a series of virtual town hall meetings. A new documentary is released, and today Congressman Raul Ruiz led the efforts for a congressional hearing on the sea. We haven't seen the Salton Sea come before Congress in over 2 decades. Our Kitty Alvarado has more on the meeting.
Come to order the subcommittee's meeting today.
The first congressional hearing was held on the Salton Sea since 1997. It was done virtually because of the pandemic. For years, Congressman Raul Ruiz has been pressing for this meeting to bring federal support to the ailing accidental sea.
23 years ago, Congress sought the need to address the federal role at the sea, and yet today we find ourselves on the verge of a crisis. And I'm committed to making change.
But not everyone is on board with that change. Representative Tom McClintock says California has nothing to show for the millions it sunk into the sea, and it's their responsibility.
Well, that was 18 years ago and $700 million ago, and nothing has happened.
But he got pushback from all sides because the federal government owns nearly half or the largest portion of the land.
The liability has shifted from the state to the Fed and back. And in that entire course, it's been the local communities who have suffered from inaction.
Torres Martinez, Desert Cahuilla Indians tribal chairman, testified before the committee.
This is our Aboriginal homeland and it must be protected.
He tells us this hearing and bill that will be introduced by Ruiz can turn around the consequences of inaction.
This tragic catastrophe that's happening now is just another addition to many federal broken promises.
That's why my bill will help improve coordination, will help the federal government and the administration prioritize the Salton Sea, streamline the projects, and will also match the funds the state are doing.
Ruiz laid out the sobering present.
The children who already face the highest asthma hospitalization rate in the state of California.
And also spoke with us about the grim future of the shrinking sea fed by agricultural water, where more and more shoreline will be exposed if nothing is done.
Imagine this dust not only affecting us locally, but being able to carry all the way to these other states carrying pesticides, arsenic, other chemicals that are damaging to their health. That is why doing nothing is not an option.
Kitty Alvarado, NBC Palm Springs.
And more on that renewed interest in the sea. A reminder about the screening of Miracle in the Desert, the rise and fall of the Salton Sea, how it went from being a destination point for family getaways, swimming and boating and dining out, to a dying body of water with communities along its shores left in ruins. Miracle in the Desert will be shown as a drive-in movie this Saturday at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. Tells the story of Hurricane Kathleen and how it decimated the Salton Sea. You can find out more information by going to miracleinthedesert.com. Also on Saturday, a group of Valley teenagers plan to kayak across the Salton Sea. They're trying to build on all of its renewed interest. They especially want to get the attention of state and federal leaders. Their 5-hour journey begins Saturday morning at 7.
Well, it's September 24th, and that means we're exactly 3 months out from Christmas Eve. How holiday shopping is changing during COVID-19. We'll tell you about that coming up.
Yeah, a lot of us just panicked when you said that, Gino. When California City may become the first in the nation to pass a law strictly regulating your junk food intake. We'll tell you where it is and what they're planning to do. And you've seen Ring security camera doorbells. Now the company has a new gadget that's coming on to the market, but it's also going inside your home. We'll tell you what I mean by that coming up.
Well, the number of first-time applications for unemployment stayed under 1 million this week, but the new numbers disappoint Wall Street. The number of first-time filers hit 187,000 last week. The number comes as U.S. lawmakers have all but stopped working on a new fiscal stimulus package. On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell told lawmakers the recovery will move forward smoother if workers can get a little more help from the federal government.
Google Maps will soon include information on COVID-19, the spread in individual states, counties, and some cities. The COVID layer in the app will show the 7-day average number of cases, and the map will be color-coded based on case rates. And the label will also show if numbers are going up or down. The feature is being rolled out on Android and iOS devices this week.
So trick-or-treating might not actually happen this year, but Americans apparently still buying candy in record numbers. In fact, sales up 13% in August. While early demand is strong, sales could suffer, though, if it looks like there really will be no kids in the streets coming late October.
Berkeley will become the first city in California and maybe the nation to ban junk food from grocery store checkout aisles. Berkeley's city council unanimously approved the so-called healthy checkout ordinance. Only low sodium, low sugar foods can be at checkout lines. It goes into effect next spring.
Yeah, we'll still find it. Ring, the company most known for their video doorbells, has introduced a flying camera. The drone is $250. The drone can automatically fly on preset paths to specific spots in your home, streaming to your smartphone along the way. The drone can also fly to something on its own if it detects motion. It's set to be released next year. We're expecting more than a few lamps to be wiped out in the meantime. But privacy experts are already raising the alarm due to Amazon and Ring's partnerships with police departments. What could go wrong? We got lots more after the break, but Mike's standing by with a little sneak peek of the forecast. Hey, Mike.
I am indeed. Here's a live look from your Agua Caliente Casino cam. Seeing some palm trees moving there. We got that northwesterly flow moving through. It's continuing to push smoke into the lower levels of the atmosphere. The big story is what happens with the wind on Sunday. I'll tell it to you when we come back. Welcome back. Every day, just a little bit of improvement. You know, any silver lining we can get this time of year. Look, this time last week, we couldn't see the mountains at all. And now we're starting to see a little bit more definition. This is your Walter Clark cam on 111 there in Rancho Mirage. Air quality slowly starting to improve, and they're starting to get a handle on some of those fires. And that is spectacular news for us as well. Spectacular news going into the weekend. We are going to do something about this. Temperatures ran 11 degrees above average today, 108. That's way too warm. 97 is the 30-year average for this time of year. 70 is your norm for the overnight temperature. We're close to that, about 4 degrees above. And as I've been saying all week long, as long as you can get it into the mid-70s, it's slightly refreshing in the early morning hours. 48 is the record on that side. 113 is the record on that side. And both of them, remarkably, in the 1940s. I got infrared zoomed way out because I got a weather story to tell you. The low pressure system that we were tracking last night, remember how it was basically parallel with British Columbia? Well, you can see the center of the low has moved way inland. In fact, it's on its way towards the Baffin? I forget what that sea is called. It's been a long time since I did Canadian geography. But what you're seeing here is the long wave that was supposed to go along with that. Originally, forecast models had that swinging over top of Southern California. Now it's just flattened out. So the good news is the flow remains onshore this weekend. That'll take temperatures down about 4 or 5 degrees. Don't expect a whole lot from it. But as long as it's onshore and not as warm as it's been, that's some great news. Now, once that passes through, in fact, on Sunday, high pressure is going to build in behind that, and then it's going to get warm, and we're going to see some offshore flow, and that's going to raise fire dangers yet once again. We are seeing the ITCZ, the Intertropical Convergence Zone, is busy down towards the south. That's been throwing some swell up into the beaches there here in Southern California, but no development. Speaking of which, we're finally starting to see some quieter action in the Atlantic. If we take a look at Beta, now a post-tropical cyclone. It's got 23-mile-an-hour sustained winds, gusts up to about 40, but the wind isn't the story. It's the rain. That's going to move across the Mississippi River Valley. And Teddy, now a post-tropical cyclone, headed up to Canada, Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, getting ready for that to move off into the North Atlantic there. And then it looks like there's no development expected for about a week or so. Fingers crossed. Temperatures tomorrow will be in the upper 50s in Calgary. You'll see some low to mid 60s from Vancouver all the way through Portland. Low 70s in San Francisco. Phoenix will be very similar to what we'll see at 105. 75 in Toronto, 80 in New York, 88 and muggy in Miami. It's been the same day there for about the last 60. 87 currently in the Yucca Valley. We've got double digits in Coachella. Way to go. 97 and 29 Palms. Still holding on to some low triple digits at the airport and out towards 1,000 Palms. Upper 60s in Big Bear. Lower 80s in Idlewild. We got that diurnal breeze around to the northwest, sustained about 13 to 15. That puts gusts at about 20-25 miles an hour. That'll last through about 9 or 10 o'clock tonight, and then it'll calm down. Temperatures get into the lower 80s by 2 a.m. We get to 75 early on Friday morning, 103 by 4 p.m., 105 for Palm Springs, Palm Desert, and Indio, 104 to 1,000 Palms, some mid-90s for Joshua Tree, mid-70s for Big Bear. We'll see dew points and relative humidity riding dry over the next few days. In fact, in the mid-30s as far as dew points go, and humidity will be in about that 5 to 10% range. In fact, fire dangers look like they'll go up next week along with the temperature. So enjoy it while we've got it. Saturday and Sunday will feature temperatures in the 104 range, still above average, but not as warm as it's been. And then next week, it all turns up again. We get to 109 Wednesday and Thursday.
The calendar reads September 24th, and that means Christmas Eve is 3 months away. And in a year when more shoppers are expected to avoid in-person shopping and buy online, the holiday sales are starting earlier than ever. Here's Jolene Kent.
This holiday shopping season will look unlike any other. Instead of Thanksgiving night stampedes at the store, 47% of shoppers plan to do most of their holiday spending online. So that's where stores are trying to meet you. Walmart rolling out a new way for kids to browse the toy aisle from home, while some malls are creating parking lot pop-ups.
And expect curbside pickup to be busier than ever, as more of us avoid going into stores but still want our gifts as quickly as possible.
The hottest items this season are different, too. With many of us spending less on travel and holiday parties, Walmart says it'll sell more athleisure and exercise equipment this season to meet evolving wish lists in this new normal.
So you'll see a lot of kitchen appliances, a lot of DIY equipment, a lot of home electronics. And I think a lot of things will be focused on how to keep children busy.
And those deals are starting extra early. Home Depot pushing 2 months of discounts. Best Buy's Black Friday deals start next month. And Amazon Prime Day reportedly slated for mid-October.
If you're on a budget, should you buy as early as possible this holiday season, or should you wait until closer to the holidays?
Do your research, figure out what you want to buy, and as soon as that deal hits, be ready to move, because I think inventory is going to be a lot tighter this year.
A jump start on making your list and checking it twice. Jolene Kent, NBC News, Los Angeles.
All right, coming up next, we've got a live look for you at Louisville's. Protesters are still in the streets, still angry over the lack of charges against officers involved in the killing of Breonna Taylor. We'll have more on that when we come back. Stick around. You're watching NBC Palm Springs.
Plus, new reports suggest your vote in 2016 may have never been counted. Ahead, more on what it means to cast a provisional ballot and how to make sure your vote is counted this year. Plus, a major festival is going completely online in 2021. But which festival is it? We'll have the story ahead.
Check, check, check.
The city of Louisville is on edge right now. 2 police officers were shot during a clash with protesters last night. Police, the National Guard, and federal agents are in place across the city. The core of downtown Louisville locked down. But it's not just there. Calls for justice ring out across the U.S. after a grand jury decision in the death of Breonna Taylor. Gabe Gutierrez has more.
After another night of unrest, tonight one of the 2 officers shot in Louisville is out of the hospital. The other is recovering from surgery. A suspect is under arrest. This gunfire captured in a police live stream.
Officer down, right there. Officer down.
In the area where the officers were shot. In all, more than 125 arrests.
Violence will only be a source of pain, not a cure for pain. And we know that violence is never the answer.
After the grand jury's decision not to charge officers with causing Breonna Taylor's death.
Her family, as do I, think these proceedings were a sham proceeding that did not give Breonna Taylor a voice.
Say her name!
Anger erupted across the country, from New York to Atlanta to Los Angeles. Whoa! Turning violent in Denver and Buffalo, where cars plowed into protesters. And in Portland, where this Molotov cocktail was thrown at police. Taylor's cousin joined this rally in Michigan.
The judicial system did another injustice to our family.
Former Louisville officer Brent Hankerson was charged with wanton endangerment for shooting recklessly, the bullets ending up in a neighboring apartment. He's out on bail, and his lawyer says he intends to plead not guilty. 2 other officers were not charged. The Attorney General is saying their actions were justified. A critical dispute in this case is, did officers announce themselves before they rammed the door of Taylor's apartment right here? The Kentucky Attorney General says they did, and that it's backed up by 1 eyewitness. But Kenneth Walker, Taylor's boyfriend, says they did not identify themselves, so he thought an intruder was breaking in, and he fired his licensed weapon. Do you believe that the Attorney General is blaming Kenneth Walker for Breonna Taylor's death?
Yes.
Frederick Moore is Walker's attorney, who says multiple eyewitnesses contradict the police. He, along with the governor, is calling on the Attorney General to release evidence from the grand jury proceedings.
Tell us what you did. Tell us what you said. Show us the file. Show us your investigation.
An FBI civil rights investigation is still underway. So is an internal police probe into other officers, including the one who obtained the search warrant.
When you're around, I stress a lot.
Leaked jailhouse recordings and a police memo obtained by NBC News reveal that her ex-boyfriend, who was arrested for dealing drugs earlier this year, used her address. That led police to think she held drugs and money. But attorneys for Taylor's family say there was not enough evidence to secure a warrant for her apartment, where no drugs or money were found, and that the botched raid exposed systemic flaws in Louisville's police department. This summer, the Metro Council passed Breonna's Law, banning no-knock warrants, and last week, police reforms were part of a $12 million civil settlement.
You never heard the police identify themselves.
Janiyah Otterback lives in one of the apartments upstairs.
It's just sad. It's scary. Like, the police did this to her, and they supposed to be here to help us.
That was Gabe Gutierrez reporting. Taking a live look now, courtesy of our Agua Caliente Casino cam. Let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett. Hey, Mike.
Gino, we've got smoke in the atmosphere today, and it was really kind of a no-win situation because we've got a fire that's burning down towards the south and eastern edge of the Coachella Valley tonight. So as we had that easterly flow blowing in, that was coming into the Coachella Valley. Now we've switched those winds around to the north and west, which is normally good news, giving us ventilation. But because of the snow fire, 80% contained, there's some good news for you. Bobcat and El Dorado, that continues to push smoke into the mouth of the Banning Pass. You saw that on our Agua Caliente cam. As we take a look right now, we've got sustained winds in that 12 to 15 mile an hour range from Palm Desert through Palm Springs. Looks like that'll continue through the rest of the evening. In fact, as we put future winds into motion here, we finally get them back down into single digits around 11 o'clock tonight, but it will remain breezy along the I-10 corridor. Bottom line, if you are a sensitive breather, air quality is still not particularly great, but I am encouraged by what I'm seeing on the GOES West satellite. In fact, if you look across the entire state, you remember this time a week ago, we had smoke literally from one end to to the other. We are seeing some onshore flow. There's a very powerful low pressure system up in the north and west there. In fact, it's bringing snow into parts of British Columbia. I'll show you that coming up. But what I'm seeing across most of the state of California is the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere starting to clear. Now the problem just remains the lower levels of the atmosphere. So if, like us, and I mean us, all of us, we've been just sniffling all week long, are sensitive breathers, we're still in that moderate range there. The South Coast Air Quality Management District has been keeping us there. That's an upgrade from where we were just a few days ago. We were in this brown zone for a couple days. Speaking of which, the further west you go out towards Beaumont and Riverside, that quality goes down to that unhealthy for sensitive groups. And if you keep going further west off towards where the El Dorado fire is there in the Angeles National Forest, they are still in that unhealthy range. One thing I'm encouraged by is starting to see a little more green. That's just off towards the west of Lake Elsinore there. So the closer you get to the coast, better the air quality is. Taking a look at neighborhood weather right now, temperatures got close to 110 today. They backed off to 103. There's that wind at the airport we're seeing sustained about 13 to 15. So that's putting gusts up to about 20, 25 miles an hour tonight. And humidity sitting at 13%. Taking a look at Futurecast, there's that onshore flow. There's that snow we're seeing up in British Columbia. But what you're seeing there is none of that moisture is headed our way. What will happen, though, is over the next 3 days, you'll see temperatures come down slightly. Saturday, 104, Sunday, 104. But the reason I put the red thermometer there is what happens Sunday afternoon. Those winds switch offshore again. It's going to get warm and it's going to dry out again. And those fire dangers could go back up. We'll take a closer look coming up.
Early voting is underway in Michigan. Michigan is a hotly contested presidential battleground state. 2020 is the first presidential contest in which Michigan voters can vote with a no-excuse absentee ballot. President Trump narrowly won the state in 2016, and recent polling shows Biden with a lead there of anywhere between 10 to 2 points. Mail-in ballots are being shipped out today in Florida. Close to 5 million voters have requested mail-in ballots, and almost 35% of Florida's registered voters intend to vote by mail. President Trump won Florida in 2016 by a margin of 1.2%.
Now to an NBC News investigation. With early voting underway in 7 states, NBC took a look at what happened in 2016 and found a staggering number of provisional ballots rejected. Cynthia McFadden on how to keep that from happening again.
Tonight, a warning from some election experts. If you cast a provisional ballot this November, you may not actually be voting at all. In 2016, 2.4 million provisional ballots were cast. 25%, 1 in every 4, was thrown out.
If you vote provisionally in this country, you have a very high likelihood that your vote won't count. Period.
Mark Elias is an unabashed Democrat, an election lawyer for Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, among others. Jessica First Johnson, a Republican election lawyer. They've met in court. Her take on provisional ballots?
It's really a way to ensure that everyone does have a chance to cast a ballot, and then the state process is followed. And if their vote should be counted, it is.
Elias says it's not that simple, though both agree about how provisional ballots come into play. You walk into your polling place on Election Day. Your name's not on the voting rolls, or there's been a clerical error, a misspelling, a wrong address. You're given a provisional ballot. Whether it will be counted is the question.
The purpose of provisional ballots was so that no one was turned away from the polls without being an opportunity to cast a ballot.
It's a noble goal.
It was a noble goal, but in elections, what you find is that oftentimes the noble goal yields to the partisan impulses.
In 11 states, virtually all red, to have your provisional ballot counted, you need to show up at the county registrar's office with an ID to prove your eligibility. The window can be as short as 2 days. Worse still, Elias says sometimes voters aren't even told. And there's another concern. In half the states, mostly red, but also blue, if you show up at the wrong voting precinct, you may be given a provisional ballot, but it will automatically be invalidated. That's right, it won't count, period.
That's why I call it a placebo ballot. What else do you call a ballot that you're giving to a voter that you know is not going to count?
If you show up to vote in a polling place where you aren't registered and the state requires you to go somewhere else, then no, your vote shouldn't be counted.
We're trying to increase opportunities to vote and have votes count, and the Republicans are trying to make it harder.
That's not true. And I'm frankly so tired of hearing this and, insulted by it. I mean, I think Republicans want to ensure that the law is followed.
She says if voters don't like the provisional ballot rules, demand their state legislature change them.
That was Cynthia McFadden reporting. So know where your polling place is before you head out on Election Day to vote if you're going to do it in person. Well, college football will resume this fall in Southern California, but will these teams be eligible for the playoffs? We're going to talk about it coming up next in sports.
Hey, Candace, it's your point guard here. Really nice hair.
NBC Palm Springs Sports Desk, brought to you by Agua Caliente Casinos. We have your game. It's time. Let's push play.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brandy Flores, and it's time now for a check on our sports headlines. The Pac-12 just approved their college football schedule. This fall season will begin November 6th, and the teams are slated for 7 games. But what does that mean for playoff eligibility? We already have seen how COVID-19 has affected college football schedules. A handful of teams from other conferences haven't even played their first game yet due to minimum coronavirus protocols not being met among the universities and football programs. When asked about this, Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bosley said that, quote, there is a conversation to be had about eligibility, and it's probably not going to be had right away. We're all going to have to see how many games we get in, end quote. The hardest thing to determine will be deciding which teams are eligible for the playoffs if games have to be postponed or canceled due to COVID-19. The WNBA announced the Defensive Player of the Year, LA Sparks' own Candace Parker. This is Parker's first time winning this award in her 13-plus career with the WNBA. And during her press conference this morning, over Zoom, of course, she received a great surprise from her teammate, point guard Chelsea Gray.
Hey, Candace, it's your point guard here. Really nice hair you got there. This is more or less of a question, rather a statement that I'm super proud of you. Congratulations. You know, I think being around you, you see all this flack and all the people that, you know, talk and have no idea the capabilities that you're able to do on both ends of the floor. And I don't mean to get emotional, but
stop.
but you deserve this award.
Thank you.
And you can't take it back. So anytime after this.
We've got Lakers, Dodgers, and NFL football going on right now, so be sure to tune in at 11 for those sports highlights. And that's it for me. Mike is up next with a check on your forecast.
Welcome back. Another gorgeous live look, courtesy of our Walter Clark cam. Encouraged by what I'm seeing out there, which is mountains. That was something we were not able to see this time last week. So things are slowly improving, but with still several major wildfires taking place across the country right now, or across the state right now. Every time that diurnal wind picks up from the north and west, that is blowing more smoke and particulate matter into the lower levels of the atmosphere. We were talking about that earlier. We are still in that moderate range. So if you're a sensitive breather, well, it's still not great out there. It will improve though. 108 current was the high temperature today. 97 is the 30-year average for this time of year. So clearly 11 degrees warm today. In the overnights though, we're managing to keep it with about 4 or 5 degrees of the 30-year average. 70 is what's normal for this time of year. 48 is the record. 113 is the heat record for today's date. Currently 87 in the Yucca Valley. We've got some mid-60s up in Big Bear, but their quality is not particularly great either. The only stubborn holdout with triple digits right now is Palm Springs International with 103 currently, 96 in Coachella, 88 in Cabazon, and some upper 70s up towards Idlewild and Anza. So here's what we're looking at this weekend. A storm system that's just doing work literally from Oregon all the way up through British Columbia and into Alaska will bring some of the first meaningful snowfall into the Canadian Rockies. What it will do for us is continue to keep flow onshore through Sunday. Now, once this moves through, high pressure will build across the southwest once again, turns that flow offshore. It's going to warm us up and dry us out yet once again next week. Bottom line, take advantage of this weekend. We've got those winds coming in sustained about 13 to 15 along the I-10 corridor, slightly less off towards the east and single single digits up towards the high desert, single digits in the mountains. I'm liking that. Temperatures will get down to the low 80s by about 2 a.m. tonight, so fairly efficient cooling. Sets us up once again for some mid-70s. Very pleased with that. 103 is where we get to by 4 p.m., and you'll see those dew points riding in the upper 30s and lower 40s, so that'll be about 5 to 10% humidity on Friday. 105 will be the big number from Palm Springs through Indio. 104 in Thousand Palms, mid-90s in Joshua Tree, mid-70s in Big Bear. Your Comfort Air 7-day forecast is showing a reasonably decent weekend, but then once we get to Sunday evening, those winds switch around offshore. It gets warm, it gets dry next week. By the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday, we'll be back up to 109 again, but we'll keep those overnights in the 70s.
In tonight's Showbiz Report, South by Southwest is going digital in 2021. The annual event will include conference keynotes, screenings, networking, exhibitions. Entries to the next year's digital experience open October 6th. South by Southwest is scheduled to take place March 16th to the 20th. Officials say they've joined forces with the city of Austin to still plan some physical events in case they can hold it. But for now, it's going to be an online experience. We're back after the break.
Well, you know, voting is one of our most important civil rights, but it isn't always accessible for paralyzed veterans and others with disabilities. A recent government report found that less than half of polling locations were accessible in the 2016 election. Joining us now to discuss this is former Navy SEAL and the immediate past president of Paralyzed Veterans of America, Al Kovac. Thank you so much for joining us, Al, and thank you, of course, for your service.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Well, we definitely want to get the word out and let people know with disabilities that it's so important to plan ahead, check your individual states. But tell us about this new campaign, Access Your Vote.
Well, Paralyzed Veterans of America has been advocating for people with disabilities, not just veterans, for 75 years. And they led the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990. There were less than 40% of the polling stations are accessible. You throw in the fact that there's a pandemic, Then you've got these storms in the Gulf. You got the fires on the West Coast. So I guarantee you polling stations are probably being relocated. So there's a lot of challenges, triple, quadruple layer cake of, challenges. And it's just made worse by being disabled. You've got 60 million people with disabilities in the United States. And you've got 60 million people that are potentially being denied the right to vote. I chose to vote by mail ever since I was denied the right to vote about 20 years ago, basically because I couldn't get into the polling station because it wasn't wheelchair accessible. So, voting by mail works for me, but it doesn't necessarily work for everybody else. And so, like you said, you've got 60 million people. You've got a broad spectrum of disabilities and abilities. So in some cases, maybe if somebody can't use their arms or hands or they can't see, then they would have a family member or someone that they trust go to the polling station. So if you would go to pva.org/vote, and there you'll have all the tools necessary to plan your vote.
That is great. Well, Al, thank you so much again. Thank you for your service. Glad you're all healthy. And we'll see you November 3rd at the polling places.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much.
Brighter Side of the News is brought to you by Holland RV, located off the I-10 at Washington.
Well, 3 New York City transit workers are out of a job tonight after their bosses found a secret man cave under the Grand Central Station. I'm pretty sure some of our staff has one of those too. I just haven't found it yet. Take a look at these photos. There's a refrigerator with beer in it, microwave, a futon, air mattress, a flat screen TV. The man cave was an interior room behind a locked door within a storage room. Inside were customized wooden boxes so that they could be used to quickly disguise some of the room's larger items like, the TV. Authorities say the room and its contents were created using city resources and maintained at Ryder's expense, but more importantly, they were being paid to be at work and, they were on a couch watching television. Sarah?
No comment.
Have you found the secret room yet?
No, we don't have secret rooms in this building, do we?
I'm pretty sure there's someplace you guys go.
Oh, clearly, you've worked here a lot longer than I do. You know all the secret rooms in here.
Yeah, they found the secret room we used to use. Mike? You know where the secret room is?
Whatever you do, don't look behind the weather center. That's all I'm saying. Nope, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Nope, absolutely. There is not a fridge full of beer back there. You know what? Your 7-day forecast is showing some pretty good news going into the weekend. Temperatures are going to take a slight dip, but next week we warm up and we dry out, and that'll raise fire dangers. Once again, we'll have updates for you tonight at 11. See you.